Check out me, mate. I'm just taking a thumbnail and I was like I'm going, alright, check out my extra junk in the trunk. I mean, could you, that's some damageable junk in the trunk.
She just wants to be beautiful, she goes.
Hello beautiful humans, my name is Paige and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for being here. I hope you're all doing very, very well. A few months ago, I was sitting scrolling through my subscribe section on YouTube, just checking what new content was out from people I follow. And I follow a lot of disabled content creators. I find inspiration from them. I enjoy watching their videos. I feel as a disabled content creator myself, it's just a really nice way to connect with people who have the similar mentality to me, who've had similar experiences, and I adore being able to connect with other disabled content creators. And as I was scrolling through the videos, I came across a video titled the Cerebral Palsy Tag, and I was like, I like that. That sounds a bit of me. I have cerebral palsy, you may or may not know. It's basically a video where the person with cerebral palsy sits down and answers questions about cerebral palsy and explains a bit about their condition and how it affects them, and you just get to know a little bit more about their life and how they work and their disability. And I haven't so much discussed that on my channel yet. I did do one video when I started my channel 3 years ago talking about my disability, but I really haven't done since. We've gained a lot more subscribers since then, and I thought it would be really cool to sit down and do that. Also, it's come at a very good time because as I'm filming this, it is March, and March is International Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. I have cerebral palsy. I have had for 27 years. 28 years. 27 years? How old am I? Alexa, how old is someone if they're born in 1992?
Somebody born on January 1st, 1992 will be 29 years old today.
I'm 28 because I wasn't born in January. Good to know. I can't believe I said I was 27 and I'm not. Oh my god. Anyway, so I've gone 28 years of my life and I didn't know we had a Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, but we do. It's in March. It's all come at a bloody good time and melded together like a beautiful pie. And it all seems good and lovely really, doesn't it? So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do a tag, I'm going to talk about my disability, I'm going to answer some questions, and let you know a bit about my wobbly bits. Not the sexy wobbly bits. Not the sexy wobbly bits. The wobbly bits. Oh my god. I'm off to a great start already, aren't I? I've had caffeine today. This is what's happening. It's definitely the caffeine. So without further ado, let's get into this video. If you haven't and you would like to, please do subscribe. If you like this video, if you like my face, then do give it a thumbs up. And yeah, let's get into it. I'm actually quite excited. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm surprised. I'm excited, but I'm excited. Are you excited? Probably not. Why am I so hyper? Oh my god. I should first and foremostly give credit to the person I saw do the tag. I can't work out who first did the tag because there's quite a few videos up on the old tube. But the first person I saw do it was Rolling with Anna. I will link her video down below. Go check it out. She's awesome. So thank you, Anna, if you ever see this video, for inspiring me to do this. And yeah, let's crack on with the first question. I will have to look at the questions, by the way. I'm not a miracle worker, so bear with me. So the first question is, what type of cerebral palsy do you have? I'll be honest with you, I am like the worst disabled person in the entire world, because up until recently I had not the faintest idea. People would go to me like, hey, what type of CP do you have? And I'll just be like, the wobbly one. I didn't know there were different types. You can get plegic this and plegic that and quadradoodah. You could get so many different types. But then one of my friends posted this thing, I think on Instagram, which explained to you the type of cerebral palsy you have, and my mind was blown. So, are you ready? I'm going to break down the type of cerebral palsy I have. So, I have spastic, that is a technical term, spastic quadriplegia. It sounds really fancy. Basically what it means is 4 of my limbs are affected, hence the quad, 4. And spastic means tightness. So I'm tight in 4 places. That's not technical at all, is it? Let me actually read you what it says. There are 4 types of cerebral palsy. Stiff muscles, or spasticity, which is associated with damage or developmental differences in the cerebral cortex. Basically, my mum didn't pop me out of a vag properly, and I got caught up and I couldn't breathe. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but essentially that's what happened. So there was damage to part of my brain, which is this little cortexy bit, which also, I realised, is also what makes a serial killer. Now the second part of that is which part of your body it affects. Diplegia, which is your bottom bits, hemiplegia, which is your side bits, or quadriplegia, which is all your bits. I've discovered I'm an all your bits sort of girl. I thought I was a 2-bit sort of girl because I've got one side that's definitely more affected than the other. But being realistic, all of my limbs are affected to some sort of degree. This hand is a little bit stiff. My leg does some weird things sometimes. So all of my legs are affected. I'm a little bit stiff and spazzy, therefore I have spastic diplegia. I feel like that was a very long-winded explanation for something I could have just said in 2 words, but you know what, I like to give you details on this channel. Question number 2 is, how did you get CP? And I very briefly touched upon this in my last answer. I didn't come out properly, essentially. I don't know the ins and outs of my mum's vagina, so I don't know exactly what happened or didn't, but I know that there were some complications when I was born, which led to my mum not being able to give birth to me naturally and me losing oxygen and having my oxygen cut off during birth for longer than you should not breathe for. So obviously when the oxygen's not getting to the brain, it causes brain damage, and that is what causes cerebral palsy. For all intents and purposes, I was a healthy baby up until my mum went to give birth, and my mum had complications, and that led to me having cerebral palsy. For me though, I would have always had some form of disability because I have other things in conjunction with my cerebral palsy, but my cerebral palsy was essentially through trauma at birth. I think that's a pretty common way to get a cerebral palsy. I don't actually know anybody who's got it any other way, so if you have cerebral palsy and you didn't get it through a traumatic birth, or you got it some other way, then let me know. Like, I would be really interested. I'm sure there are. It's brain damage at the end of the day. You can get brain damage in a multitude of different ways, so let me know if you're happy to share that with me. Then let me know in the comments. So I would be genuinely interested, because everyone I know with cerebral palsy, it's been a traumatic birth. It just interests me to know different ways that you can join this crip crew. Not sure that's PC to say on the internet. I don't know whether I should take that out. Oh no, if I've offended anybody, I'm so sorry. Question 3 is, how did you feel about having cerebral palsy growing up? I don't quite know how to answer this. I'm gonna answer it honestly. I wasn't a fan. I wasn't pleased. I wanted to run and jump, mainly run and jump, and it was difficult growing up realizing I was different. I went through a period in my life where I was very angry, and some of that is to do with other conditions I have. If you see my last video on BPD, you'll know that, you know, some of it comes from that, but also some of it comes from there being a point in my life where I realized I was different, and that was so hard to accept. I didn't like it. I didn't like that I had this thing following me. I didn't like that this thing separated me from other people, or made me different, or put me in a box that I didn't want to be in. I didn't like it. I just wanted to be, for a better word, normal. Now looking back on it as an adult, I wouldn't change having cerebral palsy, but at the time I hated it. At the time, I was convinced it was the worst thing in the world, and I wouldn't achieve things because I was disabled. Even probably up until a couple of years ago, I still would have times where I would just be like, God, why do I have to do this endless bullshit? Why can't I just jump out of bed and jump in a car and go for a run? And it weren't very nice, I'll be honest. But kind of as I got a bit older, I realized that actually it's kind of pretty cool. It gave me a talking point. It gave me opportunities to play sport and to travel the world. I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't had cerebral palsy. I wouldn't have had those experiences. I wouldn't have done things that I have done without my disability. I wouldn't have created this YouTube channel where I speak about disability. So when I was really young, hated it, didn't like it, wanted to run, wanted to do the splits. Hopscotch was something that gave me nightmares. But then as I got older, I kind of thought, you know what? It's put me in a really cool position with a really unique outlook on life that I can use to my advantage. I could go on a night out and I didn't have to walk home when I was drunk. Perks. I can park close to the supermarket. Perks. Like, I started to look at the positives in it rather than what it stopped me doing. I started to look at what it allowed me to do, and then I was like, you know what, this shit ain't too bad. This is kind of good. Question 4, how has CP impacted your life? Again, I touched upon this a little bit already, but having cerebral palsy gave me the opportunity to do things I would have never done. I was in a GB Paralympic team for a sport that is primarily for people with cerebral palsy. Not all the time, but primarily, if you got a CP, it's a good sport for you. I got to travel the world. I got to go to competitions and meet amazing friends. I got to go to award ceremonies. I got to go to a school for people with disabilities that I absolutely loved and made amazing friends. Again, I wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for being disabled and having cerebral palsy. It got me out of a life that probably wouldn't have ended in half the things I've done without my disability, and do something different. As I said, I started this YouTube channel and I've met some amazing people through it. I've had some really cool opportunities. I recently got invited on a BBC podcast to talk about disability and dating because of this channel. Like, I would never have had that if I hadn't have started this channel, and I wouldn't have started this channel if I didn't have something unique to talk about, which is my disability. So it has impacted my life in such a positive way. I can't be stupid and naive to and go, ah, nah, it's all lovely and sunshine, darling, there's no shit at all. Of course there is. As a kid, I was in and out of hospital. I had so many surgeries. I got bullied. Negative things happened, and I don't want to sit here and wob about them because they happened, they're done. And I'm sure that I would have been bullied without my disability because people are just like that. But I can't say that my disability hasn't negatively impacted me in the past in terms of how people treated me or how I feel about myself, because it's such a big part of who I am, and it means I have to live my life differently to Joe Blogs down the street. I just have to. So of course it's going to impact my life differently, because that's the very nature of the condition. Overall, if I look at my life and the opportunities it's given me, I would totally say they're more positive than negative. Little old me Muggins here, got to stand next to Chris Martin for 2 hours. Granted, I didn't know it was Chris Martin. Not a clue. If you don't know who Chris Martin is, he's the lead singer of Coldplay. He's a very lovely man. And I was at an award ceremony for a charity, and I was there picking up an award, and we were listening to everybody speak, and my mum was opposite me on, like, in the room, and I could see her going like this, and I'm like, are you okay? And it was only, literally, I'm not even exaggerating, literally after 2 hours of sitting watching these speeches, did they go, and now welcome Chris Martin to the stage. And the guy next to me stood up and was like, I'm Chris Martin. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He's so handsome. His daughter's called Apple, which we'll forgive him for because it's a terrible name. Oh, my mum was losing her mind because she would do bad things to Chris Martin. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been an oblivious wreck if I hadn't had cerebral palsy, because I wouldn't have been there. I did also meet David Cameron that day, which is probably more on the negative side, but at least it wasn't Donald Trump, so. Question 5. Do you ever think about what your life would be like without cerebral palsy? Of course I bloody do. I would be such a liar if I sat here going, nah, never ever. And I've often had the conversation, I actually think it's a question at the end of this tag, so I won't tell you my answer, but I've often had the conversation with people like, if you could take away your disability for a day, would you? Sometimes weird things like, what does sand feel like under your feet when you're walking on it? Really random, obscure things like that. What is it like just to get in a car without being my boyfriend has to rugby tackle me into the car. That is no exaggeration. He transfers me, he puts one arm around my waist, one arm around my leg, and is like, ready babe? Doof. Like, it's a dramatic event to get me into a car. What's it like just to be able to hop into a car? What's it like to be able to touch your toes? What's it like not to get a numb bum in the day? Like, these are questions that of course I think about. It's inevitable to think about what your life would be like if you were someone else, if your life went down a different path. Everyone does it. Everyone does it. Everyone's like, well, what if I'd taken that job? Or, no, what if I was a bit richer? Or, what if this? What if we are a species who like to think, what if? What if I'd done that? What if this, what if that? I think that is in our nature. So of course I've thought about what my life would be like without cerebral palsy. I'd probably be skinnier, gonna be honest, that would be nice. But I also really do think I would have gone down a very different path, and not a path I would have wanted to. I would have been stuck around where I grew up. I wouldn't have made the friends that I've made, and the friends I would have had around there, I'm not saying they're bad people, I'm just saying that their life paths I've seen them go down are not life paths I would have chosen, and it would have been very easy to be drawn into that. So yeah, I do think about it, and it does cross my mind, but it is what it is. I am disabled. What is the point dwelling on things you cannot change? This is something I'm learning. It's hard, and I feel like I'm being such a hypocrite because I always bloody do it, and I'm telling you guys don't. But it's true, there is no point dwelling on things you can't change. Question number 6, how was your schooling with cerebral palsy? Again, I have touched upon this. They're all very interlinking questions. Either that or I talk a lot of shit and don't pre-plan my questions. But I've already touched upon this a little bit. My schooling was bloody great. My early schooling, so pre-age of 8, I went to a mainstream school and I was excluded from a lot of things. I got bullied. I probably only had 2 really good friends who saw me for me. They didn't see the wheelchair, and you know, I loved them. Their names were Alex and Becky. I doubt they'll ever see this video. Unfortunately, we've lost touch, but I just remember them being, I still just remember them so vividly. And my pre-8 years old was quite hard. I had some great friends, but I also had some great bullies, and from the age of 8 I went to a boarding school for people with disabilities, and my life changed infinitely for majoritively the better. I say majoritively because me and my friends who went to boarding school have had this conversation before. Growing up in boarding school, you are very sheltered. It doesn't prepare you for life. I had no life experience, none. I was the least streetwise kid you have ever met. And that's hard. That's a very hard transition to make, coming from such a safe and structured and comforting environment to the real world. That's hard. But everything else, like, I remember going around the school for the first time, and it was the first time in my life that I felt normal. I wasn't the odd one out. Even my mum and dad, when we were walking around, they were like, we feel like the odd one out. There are so many disabled people. And I was like, there are so many disabled people. I love it. It was so good. And I remember very vividly, a boy came out of one of the boarding houses on a trike at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, crashed into a wall and just went, ah, fuck it. And the deputy head teacher, Mr. Gardner, was showing us around, and this boy just went, all right, Mr. Gardner, and like cycled off. And I was just like, do you know what? Like, their approach to disability and to education and disability was never, you can't do it. It was always, you can do it. It was never, oh, you're disabled, you have to have a lesser curriculum. This was a full curriculum. There was just such a nice kind of no nonsense, no shit vibe about this place. And I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. I went from the age of 8 to the age of 20. The age of 20. I went to school and college there, and I just, it was amazing. I truly became myself. I grew up with my friends as my family. I grew up not being the odd one out. I grew up in this beautiful little bubble. When that pops, it's hard, I'm gonna be honest, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world. Never take your schooling for granted, children. I sound like my mother, but just don't, because you're gonna miss it when you're old and decrepit like I am. You're going to miss it. I miss it so much. I don't want to be an adult with responsibilities. Question number 7. Oh my god, look how spazzy that is. Question number 7 is, has your disability changed throughout your life? And for me, not so much. I've been very lucky that my disability has stayed pretty much stable. Cerebral palsy is the sort of condition that, because it's brain damage, it doesn't tend to get worse. The things that come along with cerebral palsy can get worse. The stiffness can get worse. I have arthritis in pretty much every bone in my fucking body. That gets worse. And the stiffness, especially for me, can fluctuate throughout the year, weather dependent. So when it's colder, I'm stiffer. when it's warmer, but my actual condition hasn't changed. It's not a changeable condition. It's not a condition that I will ever die from, thankfully. It's usually the associated conditions or the other conditions you have with cerebral palsy that are the ones that get worse. Recently, and I actually can't believe I'm going to say this on the internet, but I think it's super important. I've made a joke about it in previous videos. If you watched my video with Taylor, you would have seen us talk about the fact that I have a very weak bladder, and we kind of joked about it and said some funny examples of when, you know, I've pissed myself when I shouldn't, basically. We try and make light of it, but for me, that is a part of my conditions that really affect me. I struggle with my bladder. My bladder is partially paralyzed. They think it is linked to my cerebral palsy, and I've gone through periods of my life where I've struggled with incontinence, and it is gradually getting worse. And it's something that I have only really started to admit to myself. I have friends who have catheters, and there is nothing wrong with that at all. I want to say that, but for me, it was such a big thing to admit that that might be something I would have to have in the future. I've spoken to Taylor, my partner, about it, and I've just said, like, I'm scared. It's the thought of that scares me. It makes me feel unsexy, it makes me feel unwomanly, it makes me feel more disabled, and that scares me. He is the most incredible human being, and just sat me down and was like, if you gotta whip out a catheter, then you whip out a catheter. I love you and I want you to be in the best health you are. And that outlook has made me realize that if I do have to wear adult nappies, or if I do have to have the catheter in the future, it's okay. I'm still not quite there, but I'm getting there with accepting that fact. And I just want to say right now, if you have a catheter, if you wear pads, if you have problems with incontinence and you're watching this video, I'm not saying to you that that's a bad thing, that you're unsexy because of it. It's weird because I can look at someone and they can have a catheter and whatever, and I genuinely look at that person and just think, well, that makes absolutely no difference. But then when it comes to me, it's a different ball game. I have a different prejudice towards myself than I do another person. So please don't take that as me saying that having a catheter is uncool. I don't think that at all. I really genuinely don't. It just, for me, it's been quite a hard personal journey of acceptance for that. Number 8 is, how will things change for people with disabilities? I didn't think that was going to be a question. I haven't thought about an answer for this. How will things change? Hopefully they will keep going on the trajectory that we're on, and it will be a positive change for people with disabilities. If I look back from when I was younger to now, there is more disability representation. As I said in the beginning of this video, I follow loads of disability vloggers and bloggers and influencers and writers and designers and loads of people in very creative, very visible industries who are disabled, who are promoting disability as something that is equal and talking about taboos, and I think it's amazing. I love it. I think it is slowly helping. Don't get me wrong, there is a long way to go. We are not yet equal, but hopefully it will keep going up and you will see more people with disabilities in the mainstream. I would like to see a disabled member of parliament, not like a local MP, like a proper, like, I'm in the business, I can make decisions and make a difference sort of MP. I would love to see more mainstream disabled actors and actresses. I know there's been controversies recently with films not hiring disabled actors to play disabled parts. Why? You know, I am seeing a change in attitudes. It may be slow, we're getting there, and I think the future's bright, kids. God, I sound like a terrible Trump fucking campaign, don't I? Question 9, do you believe in God? And if you do, does that help with your cerebral palsy? I do not believe in God, so this is a bit of a invalid question for me. I don't believe in God. I'm not religious. If you do believe in God, cool, great, I'm happy for you. I believe if there is a God, they're a woman. But no, I don't believe in God. Religion doesn't drive me. It's not a practice in my life. But if you do, and that's something that you believe in and it gives you motivation and acceptance, then awesome. I love that. If I was to be religious though, I think I'd be a Buddhist. Just fun fact of the day. You might want to know. And finally, question number 10. If there was a pill to cure cerebral palsy, would you take it? I touched upon this earlier and I'm gonna give you my answer now. Do you know what? No, I bloody wouldn't. Ask me 10 years ago, yes, I bloody would. But right now, this point in time, my life, no, I wouldn't take it. I would be interested to have a day where I wasn't disabled, just to see what it felt like to walk, just to do some things that maybe I can't do right now. But would I want it to be cured and taken away completely? No. It is part of who I am. It's part of my identity. It has made me a very empathetic person. It has given me opportunities I've never had. It is part of who I am. It has shaped my experiences. It has shaped my personality. It has shaped a lot about me, and so I wouldn't be me without being disabled. And I kind of am learning to like me a little bit, so I wouldn't cure myself. I don't think I need to be cured. It's not a curable thing. I'm not defected. I don't need to be cured, so no, I would not. I'd be interested to know if you would though. Let me know down below, would you take the pill? There is no judgment here. If you would take it, then let me know, and let me know why. If you wouldn't, let me know why. Like, no judgment whatsoever, and I'll just be really interested to see other people's point of view, what they would do if I popped them a cheeky little pill. That sounds a bit rapey, doesn't it? That is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been super fun. I hope you liked it. I'm very hyper today. It's been a very scatty video, but I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, let me know down below if you would take the pill, your experiences if you got cerebral palsy. How did you get cerebral palsy? I'm so interested in learning other people's experiences, especially when it's something I have experience in. I like to learn and to see how it differs. And what the fuck is going on with this bit of hair? How long has that been there? Oh no. Oh, that bit of hair has definitely been doing something funky for the last bit of the video, hasn't it? Oh god. And with all that said and done, thank you guys so much for watching the video. As always, I have been me, so please always be your lovely self, and I'll see you very soon for another video. Bye.